After everything that happened, I've been thinking a lot. I still don't think a daughter from a single-parent family like yours is suitable to be my daughter-in-law.
Your mother is right. Besides, your father is probably a loser too, right? Tell him to come here so we can talk about breaking off the engagement directly.
On the day before the wedding, I was asked by my fiancé's parents to have a talk with them, and my fiancé and I agreed to it. And when my fiancé's parents spoke those words, I was left speechless. But then, right in front of them, I made a phone call to a certain person. Your business partner wants to see you. My fiancé's parents were shocked due to the person who rushed to answer my call. I'm Brooklyn, a 26-year-old office worker. My mother passed away when I was young due to illness, and my father, who runs a company, raised me as a single father. When I was young, I used to feel lonely without my mother, and I would often take it out on my father. However, I now deeply appreciate and respect him for doing his best to raise me without letting me feel lonely, despite being busy all the time. After dating for a year and a half, Leo, my coworker at the company, proposed to me, and we decided to get married. Leo is also 26 years old like me, and he's a wonderful man who respects me both as a partner and a colleague. Although I lead a smooth and happy life, there is only one thing that worries me. It is my relationship with Leo's parents, who will become my in-laws, that worries me. Leo's family is from a so-called middle-class background, and his father is a relatively high-ranking executive at a fairly large company. His mother supports their household as a homemaker, and Leo graduated from a prestigious university and started working. Leo's parents are proud of him, but they don't seem to like the fact that I, Leo's fiancé, come from a single-parent family, and they express their disapproval of our marriage. Although Leo managed to convince them, and they eventually approved of our marriage, whenever we meet, they hide their disapproval from Leo. I thought Leo would marry a more wonderful woman. Of all people, a woman who grew up in a single-parent family. My mother-in-law made snide remarks, and I couldn't say anything back. I just felt more and more uncomfortable. When we went to Leo's parents' house to introduce ourselves, his parents also had reservations about our marriage.
Isn't there a more suitable woman for you, Leo, out there? Women who grew up under their father's care probably don't have the skills to run a household and support you, don't you think?
They said, opposing Leo's marriage to me.
Having a single parent or father instead of a mother doesn't matter. Besides, both my parents are together, but they have a strained relationship. It's ridiculous how they only come together in times like this. Anyway, I love Brooklyn, and I truly respect Brooklyn's father. Please don't say such things again.
After being rebuked by Leo, she began to snipe at me when he wasn't around. A few days after Leo had processed everything his parents said, his mother-in-law called me alone to their home using the excuse of wanting to improve our relationship. Leo said,
"You don't have to respond to their summons, since they probably won't say anything good. I'll handle it."
However, I wanted to feel genuinely happy about my marriage, and I thought that improving my relationship with my in-laws would help me do that, so I decided to respond to their summons. Their home is a 2-hour drive from where we live, but just as I arrived, my mother-in-law said to me via telephone, "I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well since this morning, so can we cancel today's plans?"
I'm really sorry.
I thought that it would have been better if she had let me know in advance, but I understood that it couldn't be helped if she was unwell. So I gave up and replied, "Please take care of yourself," before turning back. A few days later, I heard from my mother-in-law again. "I'm really sorry about the other day. I wanted to talk to you properly, but I was worried because I had a temperature of 98 degrees since the morning." When my mother-in-law mentioned her temperature to me, I couldn't help but think to myself, just because of that? "I see. Are you feeling better?" I asked back. "Thanks to you, I'm feeling fine. And by the way, when are you free next? Don't you usually call us? You didn't even contact us once to ask how I was doing. That's just like someone who grew up in a single-parent household." I was so surprised by my mother-in-law's response to my answer that I was left speechless. Does that even matter now? Besides, even though we traveled for hours on the day you specified, you didn't manage your health properly, and now you're even complaining. I don't think that's how decent people behave." When I responded to my mother-in-law's words like that, she seemed to be taken aback by my retort and was left speechless on the other end of the phone. However, she quickly regained her composure and continued speaking in a stern tone. "I'm the mother of your husband-to-be, Brooklyn, remember? What kind of disrespect is that towards such a respectable person? Really, without a mother, you grew up to be such a rude person." Okay then, I'll make sure to tell Leo about this conversation. I was flabbergasted, but I realized it was pointless to continue talking to her, so I unilaterally ended the phone call. Afterwards, my mother-in-law used a chat tool that she had probably registered my number with without my consent to send me long messages criticizing me. She even shared all of those messages with Leo. "Your mother seems to be unhappy that I won't be a homemaker even after we get married. She says that as someone who grew up in a single-parent household, I don't know how to support a warm family as a wife and mother." I showed Leo a screenshot of a message from my mother-in-law and explained her words to him. "She seems to have the impression that my family is poor and is worried that I'm marrying you for your family's inheritance." After listening to me and checking the message from my mother-in-law, Leo sighed heavily, bowed his head to me, and said,
From the beginning, she was the type of person who enjoyed finding faults in others and looking down on them, but I never thought she would say something like this to you, Brooklyn. I'm truly sorry for causing you any discomfort."
And after the wedding, he even said that he would insulate himself from his in-laws after that. Let's hold off on cutting ties completely. I think we should at least make sure we do our weddings and funerals right. I made the suggestion to try to maintain a reasonable relationship with my in-laws while keeping our interactions to a minimum. Leo had always looked down on parents and detested the fact that they both had affairs with other people outside their marriage without even bothering to keep it a secret within their family. This was the reason why he started to want to cut ties with them, and my attitude towards them only reinforced his decision. Leo wanted a complete breakup from them, so he was not happy with my proposal, but I managed to convince him. Leo reluctantly agreed and made a call to his parents.
I heard about the messages you sent Brooklyn, and even before that, about how you called Brooklyn after she had traveled 2 hours to get there only to cancel on her and turn her away.
Leo expressed his desire to cut ties with family members who would treat his future wife in such a despicable manner. I couldn't stop Leo from cutting ties with them completely, but I suggested that we at least properly handle the important events like weddings and funerals. I left it up to them to decide whether they wanted to attend the wedding or not, but I also made it clear that if they were going to try to ruin the wedding, my efforts to persuade him would be in vain. My mother-in-law begged Leo and responded, I think there's been some misunderstanding, and I'd like to discuss it.
I'll be damned if I'm going to have to cancel again because of a fever that's not even 100 degrees. If you want to talk, you're the one who has to come up here this time.
He made it very clear to her and hung up. After the call ended, Leo apologized to me multiple times, and depending on the future behavior of my in-laws, I even thought that cutting ties might be an option. Luckily, my father was busy with work, and we haven't had the chance to introduce our families or exchange contact information yet, so I explained the situation to him beforehand to avoid any unnecessary contact from my in-laws. My father said, It's up to you and Leo to decide, so I don't intend to say anything, but cutting ties with your parents could lead to regrets later in life. I think it's a bit too early to make such a decision, so you should talk it over carefully together from now on. After becoming a single father, my father felt sorry for me and always respected my opinion, regardless of the situation. However, when it came to my marriage, he scrutinized Leo quite a bit, and we had many discussions about it. As a result, my father liked Leo, and took the stance that he would respect and not interfere with anything, if that was our choice. We were living a peaceful life until the wedding, with such a father watching over us. The in-laws also thought that it would reflect badly on their family if they were absent since they were the parents. So, they had said they would attend the wedding, and we were busy preparing for the wedding every day. During the wedding preparations, we contacted my husband's parents a few times to discuss the details, but they stopped sending me sarcastic messages regarding the incident with Leo's phone call. So, without issue, the day of the wedding finally arrived. On that day, Leo and I were relaxing together when suddenly the intercom rang. When I went to the door, my in-laws were standing there, and they said they wanted to talk a little about the future now that the wedding was tomorrow. We couldn't turn them away since they had come all the way to our house, so we invited them in. Then the first thing my mother-in-law said was, "We can't approve of this marriage after all. We won't attend the wedding tomorrow either. We've already told the relatives," she said.
What?
"I've been thinking about it since then, but I still can't accept a daughter from a single-parent family as my daughter-in-law."
Your mother's right. Your father is probably a loser anyway. Let's talk directly about breaking off the engagement. Call him here.
Leo asked back in an angry tone of voice, and his in-laws replied with a confident attitude that seemed to mock him. Seeing the mocking attitude towards me, Leo held himself back from standing up in anger. "Weren't you a company executive? What if there was an employee in one of your business partner's companies who raised his daughter as a single father?" I asked.
That's irrelevant because it's about work. But if the person who raised such a worthless woman like you is a company executive, honestly, we couldn't trust the company and wouldn't do business with them. My father-in-law stopped grinning and started to answer me. "Understood. Then I will call my father here for the purpose of breaking off the engagement. Please wait." I immediately contacted my father and explained the situation. "Your business partner wants to see you." I added a few words and my father immediately rushed to our house. Nice to meet you. My daughter has been under your care. I apologize for not being able to come and introduce myself earlier. I heard that you don't want to have much to do with someone from a single-parent family.
Upon arrival, my father's attitude was humble, but he was visibly angrier than I had ever seen him before.
Are you Brooklyn's father? As I thought, a daughter has a father after all. Meeting your daughter's future husband's parents while dressed casually like that is just not common sense.
My father rushed to the scene and was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, as it was his day off in preparation for the wedding.
I apologize for my appearance.
I explained the situation again to my father, who bowed his head. I also quickly played my father a recorded conversation I had just had with him about the company's business dealings. After hearing everything, I told my father the name of my father-in-law's company. "Leo's father holds a position as an executive in his company," I said. My father grinned, understanding the meaning of my words, said, "Oh, I see. I don't want to do business with a company where I, the father of a woman like Brooklyn, am on the board." Is that what you were trying to say? Exactly. That's how much you and your family lack common sense, and that's how much we don't want to be associated with you. Understand. Let's end our business dealings then. Brooklyn, you're recording this conversation, right? I nodded, and my father-in-law looked stunned.
What the hell is going on? Don't involve us in your parent-child farce at a place like this. Anyway, the engagement is off. Do you understand?
Leo's father-in-law shouted.
We're not breaking off the engagement. I'm going to marry Brooklyn and cut ties with you.
Leo's cold voice echoed through the living room. "Do whatever you want, but in return, you won't inherit our assets, and we won't provide any support from now on." My mother-in-law, with a face as red as my father-in-law's, declared loudly, and then they both left our house in an aggressive manner. The following day, Leo's parents were naturally absent from the wedding, but surprisingly, some of Leo's relatives attended and offered words of encouragement to Leo, saying it must have been tough. The wedding went smoothly except for the absence of Leo's parents. My father cried so much that I had never seen him cry before and gave us his blessings again. He laughed and cried as he said,
"It was a good opportunity to cut off a bad relationship."
A few days after the wedding, Leo's in-laws contacted us several times, but we were too busy as a couple to respond, so we ignored them. However, this time my father contacted us. He said,
"We were able to cancel the deal successfully. They might contact you, but tell them that I won't respond to anything."
So, what happened in the end? In response to my question, my father explained to me what had happened over the past few days. As it turns out, my father-in-law's company had a large business relationship with my father's company. The initial agreement was made by the former president of my father's company and the former president of Leo's father-in-law's company, and their positions were equal at the time of the agreement. However, when the former president retired, the management team of Leo's father-in-law's company changed significantly, and the quality of their products and service declined considerably. My father could have canceled the deal, but he left it as it was because of the former president's reputation. When Leo met with my father, I had heard about this situation from him. Both Leo and I agreed with my father that we didn't want our relationship to be used as a negotiating tool just because we had formed a connection. Therefore, we had not told Leo's parents about my father's job in detail. With a recording of Leo's father's statement, my father went to the other company and discussed the matter, and it led to the cancellation of the contract. My father's company had only maintained the deal out of his kindness, and the loss of the contract was a significant blow to Leo's father's company. Any contact from Leo's parents was probably a request for assistance regarding this matter. When I reported this to Leo, he laughed and said,
"It's their own fault. They change their attitude depending on the other person's position, and don't hesitate to look down on others, so it's no surprise this happened."
After that, Leo submitted a transfer request without discussing it with his parents and legally cut ties with his family. I thought it was a bit extreme, but Leo stated firmly,
"I'm fed up with them, trying to ruin my wedding for their own self-satisfaction, and then expecting help when they're in a bad position."
After that, there was no more talk about Leo's parents. Then, when we got married, we moved to a bigger place than our previous home, and we cut off all contacts with Leo's parents. We were busy after the wedding because we were scrambling to move. My in-laws, who didn't know we had moved, apparently stormed into our former home and kicked the front door and made a lot of noise asking us to open the front door, which was reported by the neighbors. I heard they were taken away by the police. Here's what my father told me. My father-in-law was held responsible for the deal being cancelled after that, and then he tried to make up for it. Apparently, he imposed an unreasonable quota on his subordinates and became furious when they could not achieve it. Several of his subordinates reported this as power harassment to the company, and as a result, he was ordered to transfer to a poorly performing branch in a regional area and received a significant reduction in salary. It seems that they probably won't come back here and have sold their family home, moving with Leo's mother to another region. And my father-in-law's company reported this response to my father and approached him to see if they could somehow do business again. Although the terms were different from the last time, they ended up striking a new deal. I heard that Leo was contacted through his brother-in-law with a request for assistance.
"I'm already a stranger, so I don't know."
The relationship between the in-laws is apparently at its worst because of this, with both sides blaming each other for the company's dealings and Leo's split. Leo's parents, who had relationships outside of their marriage, broke up with their partners due to the move. They abuse each other on a daily basis, and they contact Leo's brother and complain about each other. Upon hearing about this, Leo tilted his head and said,
"Why are they still together? They should just get divorced. I understand why my mom is with my dad because she has never worked before, but..."
However, now that we have cut ties, it is something that does not concern us anymore, so this conversation was quickly forgotten between us. Now, Leo and I are spending peaceful days together. My father has retired from running a business and enjoys a free and slow life, and sometimes when he goes away or travels, he buys souvenirs for us and shows us how well he's doing. I'm trying my best every day to give back as much as I can to my father, who raised me so well with his own hands and still warmly watches over me. I want to live a happy life with Leo.